Hello and welcome to my forge. Today my Bretonnian army gets reinforcements. Knights, with the exception of Grey Knights due to a lack of fitting heads, are already in my army. That's why today is all about the mounted squires, for the knights are in need of someone to help them dress up in armor and take over the less honorable task of scouting. However, our squires start in the Napoleonic Wars. I have still some legs and overalls from French hussars left, because I used the legs with the breeches tucked in the boots. The overalls are removed between knee and foot. It's important that the straps for the stirrups aren't cut away, same counts for the feet. They are needed for the final miniatures. As I did with my scratch-built Rohirrim, the material is only removed on the outsides. The inside won't be seen anyway later, so it doesn't matter. The insides of the legs of the old Bretonnian squires weren't even sculpted as far as I remember, so I think it's okay to do it the same way here. When this part is done, it's time for resculpting. I'm using brown stuff this time. It's the same as green stuff, but it's possible to sculpt more sharper edges. I'm starting with the bootleg. The feet and spurs are still intact, so they don't need to be remade. The putty is brought into shape via a metal tool and smoothed with a silicone tool. While doing this, I pressed the material along the strap of the stirrup. It would press the leather of the boot a little bit down and would stand out this way. After the bootlegs are hardened, they need gauntlets, or they would look a little bit weird. This time I'm using green stuff. A small stripe is brought onto the miniatures just below the knee and is brought into shape with the silicone tool. At this point there are no limits for your creativity. The gauntlet can be made tight against the bootleg, it can be a little bit corrugated, there are no real limits here, as I said. In this case, the green stuff is pressed together a little bit, so it looks a little bit bent. Also, gauntlets in the shape of leaves or fleur-de-lis are possible, but this is something far beyond my capabilities. The legs are completed so far, now it's time for the torsos. The only miniature which will stand out a little bit is the champion of the unit. It shall represent an older squire who is soon to be knighted, so he gets scale armor. This comes from Fireforge's foot sergeants. The infantryman is cut in half at the waist, as always. After this, I remove the belt from the rider's legs. The new torso has a belt and the squire doesn't need to. The rest of the squires will get the new torsos from the knights conversions I made earlier. Removing the belts from all the other squires wasn't necessary, but with some of them I did it. One thing which has to be done is to make a larger area for the plastic glue to melt the two parts together. For this I rasped down a little bit material from the legs, where the two parts will be glued together. After the bodies are completed, the clothes have to be sculpted. For this I have to do something which I don't really like to do, gluing the rider to the horse. I find it easier to paint the miniatures when they are separated. However, here is it necessary, because the rider has to sit in the saddle to sculpt the tunic. As always, I'm starting with green stuff, which is brought into shape with the metal tool. At this stage it's important to close the gaps, because rider, clothing and armor are filling out the saddle. After this, everything is smoothed with the silicone tool. Wind throws the fabric into folds, which have to be sculpted too. For this, I'm pressing little holes along the hemline. Beginning from the belt, I'm modeling the folds. Just follow the lines through the green stuff until the right shape and depth are achieved. There's not much to be made wrong here. The fabric falls as it falls. Another thing which is to be reminded is the belt. It tucks in the tunic and from time to time follow the line below the belt so that this fold stays visible. I repeat these steps on the other side and with all squires, but I'm speeding this up a little bit. I'm placing the green stuff on the figure and bring it into shape and smooth it afterwards. After this, I'm pressing holes in the seam line and sculpt the folds. This is quite a simple task, so just give it a try. After a while, it's much more easier than you might think. At this point, there are only 2 steps left: the heads and cowls for 2 squires. The heads are very easy. Some of them are printed and some are from Fireforge. I'm sawing off a small piece from the neck of the printed heads, because they are rounded at the bottom so they would fit into the neck of the miniature. After this, I'm drilling holes for metal pins. Because of the long hair, the head doesn't fit to the shoulders, so again a little bit material has to be removed from there. This place will be covered by the hair, so it should go unnoticed. Now it's time for the last 2 miniatures which get cowls. Hopefully that's the right word, but you will see in a minute what I'm talking about. The first squire wears the cowl in the normal way on his head. I'm using a Fireforge head which is already wearing a padded cap, so sculpting is a little easier. As you can already see, the green stuff is brought into shape so that the collar develops around the neck. It is straightened and then folds are sculpted. It's the same as the tunic, the fabric falls into place as it does. Now the cowl needs a bandage, at least I'm hoping this is the correct word, but Google told me so. The German word is Sendelbinde, if you want to look it up. It flies in the wind, but it has to be attached to the miniature with enough area to become a part of it, or it'll break away sooner or later. To round off the bandage, I press the material together at the bottom. Also, there are some folds to be drawn. Squire number 2 wears his cowl folded back. As for the first squire, a collar is sculpted around the neck. When the lower part of the collar is completed, a new piece of green stuff is placed at the back of the neck, because the folded cowl forms a roll there. Here also folds appear, which are drawn with the silicone tool. This has the advantage that it straightens the small surfaces at the same time. Of course, this cowl needs a bandage too, but it mustn't be that long, because most of it disappears below the roll and hangs down the back. After all this is done, the folds are redrawn once more, and so this squire is also ready for painting. And here the completed squires ready to line up in the queue for painting. If you enjoyed the video and want to support my work, please like, share and subscribe, or leave a comment below. See you soon in my forge.